The world's UFO hotspots have now been revealed. The Defense Department has released a new document. There's a map included detailing where the most significant UFOs have been recorded based on reports from 1996 and then this year. I want you to take a look. As you may expect, the west and the east coast of the U.S. are on the map, but check out some of the other places: Nagasaki and Hiroshima in Japan, parts of the Middle East like Baghdad, Doha, and Dubai also on that list. It comes from the Pentagon's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or the AARO. It was formed in July of last year. There is a website. It provides updates, or it's supposed to, on resolved UFO cases as they are declassified. Jim Negus joins us now. He's a solar physics research scientist at the University of Colorado in Boulder. Hi there. Thank you for being with us. So the U.S. notoriously has been secretive about the UFOs and program and any identification and investigations into them compared to other countries. Why is that?
Well, first of all, thank you, Marnie, for having me on. And I want to emphasize to your audience how important this topic is. So this threads defense, science, and the public community. But I want to first emphasize how important it is to first utilize scientific processes to constrain that these are actually UFO sightings. Now, from my realm of astrophysics, there is a distinct process before we can evaluate a phenomena as actually existing. And I think it's important for us to execute much of that method before we certainly identify any of these UFOs.
I mentioned that program a moment ago, and I've got to be honest, I didn't go on today, so I'm not sure if this is still true, but I did try to jump on the website recently, in the last month or so. I couldn't find any information on how to report UFOs. I didn't find a phone number or an email or any direction. So they say they've set up a program for people to provide information and possible sightings, yet the general public, which I was trying to access, cannot. So where does that leave us?
Absolutely. So this is the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. And I myself was on this website and surprised by the lack of ability to actually report and to assess the data that has been shown on this portal. And, for me, I think, NASA and other global space agencies have devoted billions of dollars on the conquest of searching for life in our universe. And so, for me, I think, why not create a ground-based observatory dedicated towards these sightings? Technology has grown so exponentially that an amateur astronomer can today take brilliant images of nebulae and stellar clusters and dying stars. So why have we not devoted the resources, which are fairly small when you consider the billions of dollars that have been devoted? Why not create ground-based observational observatories that can definitively provide high-resolution images to the public?
Right, and by not doing that, it leads to more skepticism in the public, right? If we don't have definitive information, if we don't have high-resolution images, people go, well, maybe you have them and you're not sharing them with us. So it leads to speculation as to what may and may not be. It also, back to that website, it's a website the Pentagon set up. Does it indicate to you they're not taking this seriously, that people want to know and have a desire to know?
I think there are certainly more steps that could be taken. And I want to provide a quick sort of parallel. So from the astrophysics community, we have many surveys that look at millions of galaxies. And certainly those numbers are too large for just the scientific community to analyze. So what we've done through a Galaxy Zoo process is provide a public portal where the public can come and see our data, can help us analyze what's real and what's not. And through the interactions of the public, the science community, then we can begin to posit what we think these sources actually are. And I think the next step as we look towards UFOs and UAPs is to create more bridges between these seemingly secular communities.
Train sightings over Arizona has U.S. fighter jet pilots becoming increasingly worried of what they could be encountering midair. Just in the last few years, there were about 6 reports made to the FAA describing, quote, unmanned aerial systems flying over Arizona's most restricted airspace. Some of these flying objects were spotted as high as 36,000 feet and flying up to nearly 600 miles per hour. Arizona has over a handful of military bases across the state, including the state's Air National Guard. These latest reportings are having some ask the question, what's really out there? Here with us now is Alex Dietrich, former military officer with the U.S. Navy with 22 years of experience, pioneering as one of the nation's first female strike fighter pilots. First of all, Lieutenant Dietrich, thank you so much for your service.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Tell me your story. What made you speak out now?
Well, I haven't been withholding information or not speaking about this incident happened back in 2004, the Nimitz encounter, when we were conducting training exercises off the coast of San Diego. We reported it at the time. It was never classified because it is, a purely, truly unidentified encounter that we had. We don't know what it was, and we couldn't speculate at the time, and I won't speculate now. But ever since, there have been reports and investigations, and I'm certainly here to advocate today for a systematic reporting system to have the resources and the training and the mechanism so that when people do see something unusual, they have a way to report it, and that we have resources available, qualified teams to investigate and analyze and make sense of what we're seeing.
And Alex, more often than not, Lieutenant Dietrich, you all would discuss amongst yourselves, hey, did you see that? Yeah, I saw it too. And sometimes there was safety in others having seen or experienced the same thing.
Oh, please call me Alex. And sure, there's a stigma around the topic of UFOs, because of Hollywood and sci-fi, and we've made fun of it and snickered about these silly movies and books and shows that we watch. But really, if we see something in our airspace that we can't identify, we worry about national security. We worry about safety of flight. And, of course, all the scientists are going to say, we're curious and we should figure out what it is. And so, I'm hoping that by talking about it, it will reduce the stigma and people will be encouraged to share their stories with colleagues and, again, with officials who can actually do something about it.
And Alex, I'm glad that you pointed out the fact that you don't necessarily believe it's alien life form, but they're just objects you can't identify. Let's take a look at some of these. We're seeing everything that looks like a flying Tic Tac over Arizona. Describe some of these things that you saw while you were up there.
Right. So in November of 2004, my colleagues and I, we were in 2 aircraft with 4 air crew, 2 pilots and 2 weapons systems officers. And we saw visually what we describe as a Tic Tac because it looks like that little candy breath mint, sort of a matte white, oblong shape with no wings or smoke trail or anything that would indicate how it was turning or traveling in the way that it was. So I've heard other encounters described with different characteristics, and I wouldn't want to suggest that they are all related, that they have the same technology or the same origin. But what's important is that we have some standard template for debriefing, that we have some way to take in this information, to ingest it and make sense of it.
Absolutely.
And say, are these related?
And Alex, back when the DOD developed the B-52 bomber, people initially thought that was a flying object of some kind that they couldn't identify. Do you think this could also be some type of a system that's created that we just aren't aware of yet?
Sure. Well, I certainly hope that we have access to and control over this technology because and I'm referring to what I saw in 2004, at least, but I don't think it is because we wouldn't operate or we wouldn't test something in a range where we have a military exercise being conducted. We wouldn't put our blue forces at risk like that. So while I hope that, it is within our arsenal, I don't suspect that it is.
I love that. I'm glad that you made that distinction, because even if it is something that we've created, we would not have flown and tested that object at the same time when you're doing training exercises. Lieutenant Dietrich, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Great, and thanks for taking this issue seriously.
Absolutely, and we'll continue to follow up on this, and we'll follow up with you again later. Thank you.
There was a really strong light. It lit up the entire cab of my cruiser, to the point where I was having a hard time driving because I really couldn't see it. I was blinded by it. It was a perfect sphere, and it almost looked like plasma moving constantly. And I was perplexed and confused at what I was looking at.
That is veteran Connecticut police officer Robert Klein describing what he says was a close encounter with a UFO. Take a look at this video. This is a reenactment of what Officer Klein says he saw back in April of 2022, taken from his description. He says he was barely into his overnight shift on a stretch of dark road that runs along a lake when his patrol car was filled with bright light that emanated from an object that was hovering near his car. The light changed colors several times, and then it zipped over the lake in the blink of an eye. Here to talk to us more about this alleged UFO sighting is NewsNation special correspondent and investigative journalist Ross Coulthart. Ross, it's always good to see you. I want to get your immediate thoughts on this account from Officer Klein.
G'day, Natasha. Well, it's exciting because it looks like, when you see that fantastic reenactment that NewsNation's done, it looks like something out of Close Encounters of the Third Kind. You see the cabin of his cruiser filling up with light, and then when he's got his faculties back, he looks out the window, and as he describes, it's this gigantic, pulsing, multicoloured orb. And it's quite extraordinary. But the thing I find fantastic is that an officer with the experience, 25 years experience of Robert Klein, showed the presence of mind and indeed the courage to feel okay about coming forward and talking about it publicly. I think that's the most significant and important thing, because frankly, these sightings are happening all the time. There's a huge intensity of sightings right now, many of them orange plasma balls like he described, and where he is very close to one of the most important UFO sightings areas in US history, which is the Hudson Valley, where there was an enormous number of sightings 20 to 30 years ago.
I appreciate that context. And when it comes to Officer Klein's account, what would you say to anyone who is skeptical because he waited 2 years to come forward with this testimony?
Well, how do you deal with skeptics, Natasha? I mean, ultimately, they're just going to always say it can't possibly be, therefore it isn't. There's a kind of a denialism in the face of overwhelming evidence. A lot of people say witness evidence isn't evidence. I don't agree. Witness evidence is evidence. We convict people based on witness evidence in our courts. It's very important evidence. And in this case, we have a very senior police officer, a man of high credit, who's worked for his community for 25 years. Why would he expose himself to public vilification and ridicule, or at least the risk thereof, by speaking about UFOs? All credit to him for showing the bravery about coming forward. I think we're moving beyond the period where these things get treated with default ridicule and contempt. I think the public are a lot wiser than we give them credit for. They can smell a rat when they see one, and I freely speak about the fact that I think the US government knows a lot more than it's revealing about what these objects are.
And for the sake of playing devil's advocate, do you think there are any immediate Earth origin explanations that come to mind for what he saw?
Okay, let's try that. It could be, say, a flare. The trouble is that what he described was instantaneous movement. He describes 1 minute it's over his patrol car, and the next minute, as he films with his video camera, it's zoomed instantaneously across the lake. Flares don't do that. Neither do aeroplanes, helicopters, or any other type of prosaic explanation. Could it be a meteor? Could it be a comet? Could it be a satellite? No. So all of the prosaic explanations that you'd normally look for to try and explain something like this, and you should, because quite often it's important to be skeptical. Quite often we do mistake things that are prosaic for abnormal or anomalous objects. And I think that the simple fact is, in this case, there is no explanation.
Have you ever seen this level of reports on social media before of people describing these witness firsthand accounts? And are they notably clustered in specific areas?
Natasha, the sightings at the moment are off the charts. I've been talking to people from MUFON, and they're telling me that reports not only in the US over sensitive US military facilities, particularly facilities with nuclear weapons or nuclear power, but also over the United Kingdom, there are spates of what the US Air Force is continuing to describe as drone sightings over some of the most sensitive RAF, Royal Air Force bases in the United Kingdom. And we know, apocryphally, that they are bases where nuclear weapons are allegedly located and they are shared with the US Air Force. It's an issue of grave concern. In fact, it should be a national security concern that right now, over sensitive military facilities across the United States, as we've reported before, I think I've spoken to you about sightings over the Langley Air Force Base in Virginia, we're now seeing those over the continental USA and across Europe, particularly in the United Kingdom. Sightings are off the charts. I've never had so many reports coming in. And a lot of them, intriguingly, Natasha, are orbs, plasma orbs with this distinctive orange-red colour that Officer Klein saw that evening in 2022.
That's a UFO.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I asked NewsNation special contributor Ross Coulthard about this latest sighting in Oklahoma, and here's what he had to say.
It's very strongly indicative of a lot of objects that, frankly, never get explained, that appear in skies, not just over America, but all over the world.
We want to bring in now the man who filmed this video with his son, Navy veteran Steve Aragona. Steve, thank you for your service and thank you for being here tonight.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Steve, walk us through what you and your son saw. How bright was this? What made you think that this was something you hadn't seen before?
Well, so we were all out front. The kids were riding their bikes, throwing footballs. It was getting kind of dark, and my neighbor across the street, Kevin Lucia, says, "Hey, Steve-O, look at this." And so I was kind of standing next to him, and he pointed up, and I looked up, and this, whatever it wasn't moving at this point. It was just stationary, and it was bright. It was so bright. I'm like, okay, this is not a shooting star. This isn't a comet or a helicopter or an airplane or anything that we've ever seen before. So like everybody else, man, we get our phones out and, I'm doing a little video of it and the kids have their opinions on what it was, which was kind of comical. And, the rest is kind of history, but it eventually started moving. And then once it started moving, it shot out this almost looked like a round, smoky type circle. And usually if something like that happens and it's a rocket, after listening to numerous experts, it would move away from that circle. Well, not in this case. This object actually moved towards the circle that it produced, which was really odd for us. And then it eventually disappeared.
Just disappeared out of thin air, or did you see it fly away slowly?
Yeah, well, no, it started moving towards that smoky ring. And then as it got closer to it, it just kind of faded, like it just vanished.
It just vanished. Okay. And we do want to note SpaceX did have a launch earlier, but SpaceX saying you would have seen that 180 degrees in the opposite direction. Steve, very quickly, Did you believe in extraterrestrial life before this? And what do you think now?
Well, we all kind of have our thoughts and ideas. But if we all think that we're the only species that God has made in this big, vast universe, I think we're mistaken. But who knows? I mean, it's definitely interesting. So
definitely interesting, Steve. Steve Aragona, appreciate your time tonight. Thanks for just telling us what you saw. Thank you.
Ross Coulthard joins us now with more. Did they find the object, the pieces of the object they shot down?
No, ma'am, they did not. In fact, it's a continuing mystery. 6 months on, the public's been told nothing. We've been told that they didn't find anything, even though the New York Times and other institutions were reporting at the time that the sea ice was frozen and that it was quite clear, there was very clear open conditions that day. The conditions were perfect for recovery. And moreover, it was reported in media that there was something anomalous about the Alaska object in particular, that somehow it remotely interfered.
Like, I'm sorry, go. I interrupted you. Meaning what? Anomalous.
That's
how?
right. No, I mean, there were reports that the Alaska object somehow remotely interfered with the sensor systems of the US fighter jets that tried to intercept it. And this is an ongoing mystery, Elizabeth. We just don't know. And I think the public's got a right to know what happened. And the Pentagon has indicated it's soon about to start releasing some of the shoot-down vision. Because this was an unprecedented incident. For the first time in 65 years, NORAD used lethal force to engage a UAP over American airspace.
Yeah, and we just had a Pentagon briefing a few days ago on UFOs, or UAPs as they call them now, saying we're going to be more transparent and share more. And you've got a lot of questions here, and we have no answers. All right.
It is really quite extraordinary. I mean, I just find it amazing that we don't know the answers to what happened in February, and I think the public's got every right to know.
Thanks so much for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.